So yeah, this is interesting because this is two films that I'm going to talk about, less for one than the other, but two films that are the third. So this is Final Destination 3. I'm also going to point out, this is also the film when Saw 3 came out. But why did Saw 1 and 2, I can see why people like it. I absolutely love all of the films, and I can see why you can say that they are better than Shaun of the Dead or Corpse Bride for the respective years. I can get that. I personally prefer Shaun of the Dead because I like Edgar Wright. I was doing one of the videos where it's like, oh, what's your blind thing? Films, I actually realised, Edgar Wright or Henry Selick. But that's besides one, I might bring that up in another thing. The other one is sort of Corpse Bride, which in my opinion, I just like that dark sort of stuff because I think it's fun and really interesting to look at that like as a film. But I get number one, number two, I get because you deal with the first initial concept and then the second one breaking up the idea of the house and all that stuff and actually bringing someone who's in the game, because last time it was just someone on the floor, actually as a participant, which I think is really fun, and the time thing is really interesting, but I prefer those two. Saw 3, however, I like the idea that it's dun dun dun. A lot of them have been not linear. Saw 1, you're stuck in a building. Saw 2, yes, you're going around, but you don't really have traps that sort of do this, then this, and this. Saw 3 is that. And even though it has one of my favourite traps, the rack, Final Destination 3, I like. For two reasons. One, I like it because it has the photograph ideas. It has pictures of all of them, even though fundamentally it kind of has a bit of an error in continuity. What do I mean by that? So what do I mean by having a little bit of an error? Right? So when you have Final Destination 3, you have here are the photos, here are the deaths. They are connected, they are linked. Right? Well, let's look at Final Destination 3. You have the photos before the sort of main incident on the roller coaster. Which I always like to point out, I see CZ's videos a lot of the time, and I talk about how I kind of watch him, and I look at his videos and then get a better appreciation for the films. I also like that he did a video on like, oh, real life events, and like how each one of these things could happen, like these things are real events and how they could, how they are actually. But I like how he went to like, yeah, and the roller coaster is physically impossible. As a person who did work in roller coasters, legitimately, there was one roller coaster I'm not going to talk about too much because my role is meant to be hush hush, acting stuff, but so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Some people might have heard it because they're either there or they want to off. But there's some times where like, if someone, because we were doing sort of, actually if I just say it, I think you'll know it because I said Ghost Train. You would, if like something falls in, you have the radio for this, that, there's certain like recalls to make sure everything's safe. So I do kind of, obviously I haven't been on like anything near the one that they've been on, but I know that there's a bunch of like safety checks, this. There's also a thing that I remember that in Fort Park, they do an actual thing where they sort of keep an eye, they allow to put them back in if they actually was like, oh, this could be a danger. Because people can put their arms like this around, and obviously they could get injured, but they wouldn't, no, obviously the people do. So they do this to make sure that everything in sort of like this way that people can like reach. I don't think up, because up there's like certain height limits for certain ones, so they know like keep your arms down. But with like this, people might reach their arms out, and it's certain like safety things of like, oh, don't do, like we might need to get rid of these sort of like greenery of certain ways. There's not really certain ones where you have sets that you go through different. But I think people would know, like, oh, if I'm going through it, I might need it. But there is certain safety checks. I like this one because of the photos, even though it doesn't make sense, because the death should have been predicted on the roller coaster. Does not add up in general. It is a fun idea though. I like that idea. I like the general premise. And I do get the critique. I kind of see it with 4 and 5, which is basically, hi, my name's Dave. Oh, Dave's dead. Hi, my name's Sarah. Oh, Sarah's dead. But I'm also not going to deny that I am biased. I think I've said this before on Final Destination 2, that one of the things that was in Final Destination 3, which is why I believe that, is that the choose your own adventure choice where it's like, oh, you see a newspaper and Kimberly, I forgot the other person's name, I'm not going to look it up, Kimberly and someone else dies in that incident, where they go into a wood chipper, which is the most horrifying way to die. I think some people don't make it canon, and the reason why is, oh, they should have lived after the first one. I think Final Destination 5, I think the idea of like, oh, saving yourself through like doing it medically, yeah, you could, but you also do need to be considerate that realistically, the fact that if new life literally gets put in the system does not count through bloodlines, why would dying and come back make so much of it? Because it's a bit confusing. Maybe I would also like to point out, maybe I actually might look at Final Destination 2. Thomas's character did not go through that. So Kimberly's character could be saved and still could try to save Thomas, and as a result dies. It's very confusing because sometimes it's not clear how the rules work, which I think I like, because it's the idea of like, there's no clear structure of like, this is how it works. You do this, you do that, you do that. Bob's your uncle, you win a prize. Bob's your uncle, here, you win your very own prize. It's like, it's not clear, and I like it because it means some of the more interesting moments become, what's this? How does this work? Why does it work? Like this. So overall it's fun, it's really interesting. But again, I think the two things, I also do like the idea of, I think I said before, the choose your own adventure. That was fun. But there's also an option where they got saved, but that has been specifically stated to be non-canon, in a way. Because there's a lot of things like, oh, someone's gone insane, and like, etc., etc., which is interesting. I don't know how that route goes. It's really interesting. Basically, everyone but, I think, 4 people die. So it's really interesting overall. But I don't know how that works in general. But I think they specifically said that's not canon because that's a slideshow. It's really interesting though. Overall, I do like it. I do find it interesting. I also try to make like a Final Destination D&D character. If you want to see that, comment. I haven't done the best job. And I'm not gonna lie, I did use a bit of AI because I got bored and like tap. It's not great, but again, I'm not making it. If I ever made a D&D character, I'd fully just hate the concept and just remaster it and remake it to an actual thing and not using AI. I was just bored one day and I was like, da da da. AI is not good. I don't like that. I just get bored sometimes and just test it to the limit because of boredom. Anyway, I like this. This is a good film, and I find it's good. Obviously, 4 and 5 aren't on this list, but I'll talk about that in those years that they came out. So yeah. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, and even though it is technically like 12, good night.